guys? Josh here, and today we have
Bren
and
CV.
And that is CV, right? With a V?
Yes, sir.
Not to be confused with the Navy's CVs. Alright, today's roundtable discussion, we're going to talk about anything and everything that comes to mind. A thing we've been kind of talking about personally off camera, Bryn and I at least, is kind of the differences that you run into as far as relationships, as far as marriage, dating, different things like that. Because truly, I'm going to be 33 in February, and the dating scene, from my understanding, has changed quite a bit. Now,
I'll ratchet as fuck.
I'll be honest, because you both are dating.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll be honest in saying I would not want anything to do with that. I met my wife and we got together 8 years ago. We've been married 5 years on the 2nd of January. And I would be terrified at 33 with my receding hairline to try and enter the dating scene.
Well, I'll say this, and I think I can't speak for Stevie, but I'm pretty sure she's probably on the same page. Like, at the point in time that her and I met, I'm pretty sure we'd both given up on really dating, like in general. But like, I don't know, it just kind of happened. But the dating scene as a whole is fucking outrageous.
Yeah.
Like, I was married for 7 years, almost 7, or I was with my ex-wife for almost 7 years. So I was out of the dating world for a little over, almost 7 years. And a lot has changed. I mean, a lot.
Yeah. You know what's funny is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know how people are meeting nowadays. You know, it used to be you would just meet people, right? You meet them through mutual friends.
At a party, hanging out in public.
Exactly.
Or, you know.
When I got my divorce, because I was married prior, I heard of a thing called Plenty of Fish. Right. If you know anything about it, I do.
It's a fishing website.
It's totally the hookup.
It's to me. Right? It's to me buddies to go fishing with.
It's literally
right?
the hookup.
Yeah, it's to meet people to fish with. Unfortunately, sometimes if you have Josh's luck, that person who wants to go fishing with you also wants to kill you because you don't call him back. Because you were under the understanding that it was a one-time fishing expedition. But I digress.
I seen a meme not too long ago that was, I guess it was supposed to be funny, but it was actually extremely true. And it was like, meet somebody on Facebook, give them your Snapchat, exchange nudes, hook up, ghost each other after, whatever. And that's kind of what the dating scene is nowadays. I mean, like I see it with friends of mine. I've seen it a couple personal experiences. Like that's exactly what it is. Like. It's complete hookup culture. There's no substance to a relationship anymore. It's depressing.
Well, I don't know that that's new, right? So like when I was younger, much more handsome, much more athletic, I had kind of a couple rules that I would do, right?
I like rules.
My rules were as a couple things. You never hook up with the chick more than once, and you never give them your address.
Or
right?
your real name.
Well, I gave him my real name. I gave him my real name, right? Child support checks if that has to come. I'm just kidding.
He's like, I gotta cover myself, guys.
Right, exactly. So legally, I'm held accountable.
Right.
No, it was one of those things where it was never take him to my place.
Right.
Right. That it's my domain. That's where I don't want people entering.
Yeah.
Because people try to move in.
Hook up once and call it good. So if you don't hook up a second time, then they don't. Hopefully they don't think that there's something there because you're just kind of done.
So question for the both of you.
Yeah.
I heard a little rumor while I was getting tattooed the other day. And I was talking to him and he said, you truly cannot know if you have feelings for a woman until you hook up with them.
That's not true.
That's completely not true.
So I'm going to tell you from my perspective. So hearing what a dirtbag guy kind of was, right? With that explanation I gave, with my wife, right? I'll just kind of lay out the whole scenario. I moved to Idaho to get full custody of my daughter that my ex-wife put up for adoption. $30,000 later, I have custody of her. So they're like, what the hell am I supposed to do now? But I got a job. The first job I could get in Idaho was in a call center. And going through training, I moved here to take the job so that I could, get custody of my daughter. In training, first day, I'm sitting there kind of looking at my computer, probably looking at banjos on Craigslist. And I hear high heels, right? And in walks in who's my wife now. She was my trainer, right? And I try to ask her out, like, to hang out sort of thing, because I was interested in her. But she always said no. Then, of course, after I stopped reporting to her, that whole scenario kind of changed and she was open to it, right? So even though at that point we had gone on a couple dates and had been hanging out, and when I say dates, I mean like traditional dates, taking her to Outback Steakhouse, that sort of thing.
I love that you consider that. You're like, that's a
hold on.
staple.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say this because I'm out of the dating scene, right? So I don't know what the actual a traditional date looks like at this point. Could be dungeon
But
porn.
dinner. We'll just
Dinner,
Right,
yeah,
dinner date.
exactly.
Hey,
So
let him pick a staple, okay? He's like, so if you want to woo
Yeah.
her, you got to take her here, here, here.
that's all right.
Golden Corral.
Outback Steakhouse is a staple, and it is guaranteed to lead to a second date.
You wait till the fucking 5th date for Applebee's.
That's downgrading. They microwave.
Hey,
food.
dollar margaritas, man.
I don't think I've ever actually had a margarita.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah, but I digress.
That's a topic for another day.
That is for another day. So, essentially, we were dating for a couple weeks, and I even had, with respect to my wife, we drank one night and we're hanging out and kind of partying. I could have probably taken advantage of the situation.
Frat boyed the shit out of her.
Frat boyed the shit out of her. But instead, what I chose to do is I helped her go to sleep, and I slept on the ground next to her, and actually ended up holding her hand all night.
Aw.
So that's when she was like, okay, this guy actually cares about me, sort of thing, and is trying to, build something. But I've actually had that backfire. I tried that one other time with another chick where I'm like, hey, I'm going to respect her. I'm not going to try and send a message, because I'm going to be honest with you, from my perspective, when you're single and you're hooking up with a chick for the first time, it's not necessarily, for me, it's always been about sending a message. You want them to remember you. That's, but.
I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have to smash in order to leave it.
That's true. But anyways, no, like I tried that with another girl years ago, and she took that as, well, if he's not going to make a move, I'm going to have another guy make a move. She hooked up with another guy, so I don't think that works for everybody.
But it's definitely a clear indication of that person's intentions
It's a clear indication of your intentions
and
the
character
person's
of that.
response,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that that's worth its weight in gold, right? Like, if you hook up with somebody right away, you've gotten to the most intimate parts of them without the emotional intimate parts, right?
Right, yeah.
Their body, you've seen their vulnerability, or you've experienced it in some sort. When you withhold that and you show genuine interest, I think that, like, I didn't consider it a loss when the girl who ended up hooking up with another dude, I didn't consider it a loss. I saw it as an opportunity to save time.
Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then from there, I swore off French women. But
Whoa! You
You're
tell
like,
me she
hold
was
on.
French, man. That's
Hold
part of their
on.
culture,
Hold
though.
on.
It's kind of. Well, I mean, so me and CB actually, like, we started dating before we ever hooked up.
right.
So, like, and that was everything you just said.
So hold on.
He's talking like past tense, and I'm like, dude, this is like very
Right,
recent.
it is. But I mean, that is something that we talked about, and
Yeah.
we don't we made a conscious choice that, like, we're gonna date before we hook up, like, because of all the things you just said. Like, it has to be a little bit more. There has to be more than just I want to hook up, and then the sex is good, so I guess I'll date you. But, like, there has to be more than that in order to have a relationship. So I personally have always kind of I have rules.
Yeah.
And that was, like, one thing. Like, first date, I'm not having sex with you. I want to hang out. I want to get to know you. I want to understand, like, what makes you tick. Like, if our personalities even align. Because, like, for me personally, like, having just going out and having sex, like, that's really not a goal.
Well, that's
like,
only 3 seconds of your day.
exactly. You know? Like, but
He's like 20 seconds.
There's still 23
Hey,
hours and 59 minutes and 57 seconds left. You
He's
have
like,
to get to know
trust
that
me, I
person.
got you. Like
But,
20
like-
seconds.
but that's not, anybody can go out. Like, let's be honest, like, anybody can get laid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you want to get laid, like, you can just go out and get laid. But for me, like, there has to be something more than that. There has to be some more of a connection than just, oh, I like your body when it's naked. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. You know what's funny? Actually, kind of what you were talking about reminded me of it. My ex-wife, we would have never gotten married because I had my rules, as I explained earlier. She was the rule breaker. I did not intend to hook up with her. I thought we were gonna hang out, kick it, drink some beers, and then she essentially raped me.
Yeah, he's like.
And then she wouldn't leave.
This is called stalk.
I went to work, and she was still at my house, sort of thing. But I was young, so I was like,
Right.
okay, well, I've never actually had a girl kind of hang out, so I didn't know what to do and how to handle it. So I got married, and yeah.
Which is, I mean, that makes total sense, right? Like, this girl won't leave my house. I might as well marry her.
Might as well marry her. Fuck
Yeah.
it.
Fuck it.
Yeah,
Seal the
because
deal.
well, to be fair, I was 19, right?
Oh, wow.
And-
Okay. That's definitely some.
I was very young,
Yeah.
right? At 19 years old, I probably had a different history than maybe you did, right? Like when I was really young, I was a very fat child. So I was one of those kids who didn't really hook up with a lot of chicks till I was 17. When I was 17, I leaned out, got pretty muscular, and life kind of changed. And that's when I created those rules. But
Right.
before that, I was the fat kid who'd sit in my bedroom and listen to Whitney Houston and cry. No, I'm just kidding.
He's like, actually, I'm really not kidding.
Actually,
Hey, will you hand me that Coke, please?
yeah, for sure. So I don't know. I think that it's interesting to hear, and I really want to hear from you guys. I've talked a lot myself, and I'd love to hear. You both are younger than me,
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear kind of what it is for you guys, and I'd love to hear each individual perspective as far as the dating world. Bryn, you're pretty new to it.
I
right?
am, yeah.
Reborn.
No, yeah, I'm fairly new to it. I've had several not very favorable experiences in the dating world, and
Without going into specifics, what do you mean?
well, just the I don't know. Like today, things are different in the sense that like it's acceptable to kind of just tell somebody anything that they want to hear to get what you want, and then like at the drop of a dime, it's okay to just be like, nope, done. You know what I mean? Like you can tell someone. It's that old like imagine the old like early '90s frat boy scene where it's like, oh babe, you're so pretty. I can see us going somewhere. You know what I mean? And then it's just like, got what I want, I'm out. That's a very acceptable thing across the board. Not just dudes, not just chicks, not
That's
just
what I was going to ask. So you've actually experienced that with women where they're doing that?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Like-
Absolutely. I've been in a
So
relationship.
they're
with
looking
that.
at you saying, right here, baby girl, let me show you the world.
No, well, yeah. I mean, it's not the same platform and the same dynamic for every single person because every person wants something different, But in my personal experience, it was a lot of the talks about the future and how we're going to be together and how you're perfect, you're the best thing I ever had, and then once they got what they wanted, it was just time to dip.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
that's very acceptable. And I'm sure CV can comment on whether or not it happens to women, but I'm almost certain it does. But where guys will do the same thing. Like it's no longer just you'll find that dirtbag every now and then. Like there's websites dedicated to this. I mean, look at what Tinder is. Like, look at Tinder.
No, there's actually a website. I'm not going to mention the name of it, but there's a website where like people oust people who are dirty scumbags, right?
Ooh, I poured that one strong.
I've seen that before where they're like, hey, this guy got me pregnant and then went and got my best friend
Got my
pregnant.
best friend pregnant.
Here's his picture.
Savage.
Go hook up with him. So there's websites dedicated to that, and it's
Right.
kind of funny to look
But
at.
well, and then also on the flip side of that, like I've also ran into the situation where, like I hooked up with this girl, and she pretty much tried to move into my house the next day, like,
Yeah.
which is just absolutely wild to me.
And you didn't marry her?
I did not. I was.
He's like,
I
oh,
was-
you went the
Oh,
opposite
you
path.
did what
Yeah.
you should
Yeah,
have
you
done.
should have done, right? He's like, look at you.
No, I immediately took that as a red flag and was like, this is not healthy. This has to stop.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, I think what today's dating world lacks is substance, substance, or whatever the fuck that word is. Shit that means stuff.
Substance.
There you go. Yeah, we'll go with that. But that's my personal take on it. I think there's a lot of shallow people out there. or a lot of selfish people out there. And I mean, every now and then you can find somebody you really click with, and that's what happened with CV and I. Is we both kind of met, and we're like, wow, we really click really well, and now we're dating.
I think the important thing is to find somebody that you can be friends with, right? But it has to be a twofold. You have to want to be like have a genuine friendship that you either have or you're building, but you also have to kind of want to have sex with them too. And I think that's the perfect balance, personally.
I will disagree. That is definitely important, but one of those personal experiences that I was talking about was with somebody that was actually a friend at one point. They were a friend for a really long time before we ever got romantically involved, and it was that same thing. Like, as soon as they got what they wanted out of the relationship, they were like, gone.
But all right, so here's why I'd say maybe not disagree. You're basing it off of one experience, right?
No. I'm not saying that that's not something you need. I'm saying that doesn't solidify.
Gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying. Sevi, you've been quiet over there.
Have I?
I'm really
wanna
interested
hear-
to know what goes on with women, because I bet you guys deal with all kinds of shitbirds.
Yeah, let's hear about
Full
from a woman's
discretion.
perspective.
Full discretion,
Yeah.
though. While we're sitting here waiting for you to come over, with relationship status on both of our Facebooks, she gets a message from some guy that's like, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" I swear to God.
That wasn't my profile. I used the
It's-
other one. No, I'm just kidding.
Right?
It's fucking crazy.
Fucking incredible to me that people will like all my shit, and then the minute I'm in a relationship, it's all just like, fuck that.
Dead.
You know, it's almost like, here's all this attention, but here you still get all this hidden attention in your messages, stuff that people can't see. So stuff that I read on a daily basis, and I'm like, hey, I'm, open in this relationship. Like, I'm constantly tagging this person in my posts and everything. It's visible on my profile. Like, the first thing you see is in a relationship with somebody. And I still get these secret messages from people. Like, it's fucking insane to me, or people that are even in relationships and they'll be adding me. I'm like, what benefit do I have to bring to your Facebook that you need to add me when you're in a relationship?
Well, I don't think you can just blank statement that, and let me explain why. At least for me, I get friend requests like there's no tomorrow.
Do you?
Right? And it's usually like, oh, well, you're friends with this person, this person, this person. They all like XYZ, so clearly you must like XYZ. So I think a lot of times people are looking for how can they broaden it. Now, granted, young men, right, your age. I'm turning 33 in February, so clearly I have to say young men.
Fucking old Josh.
He acts like he's ancient. I'm like, no, you're not, dude.
No, I think like
Okay.
it's probably different for guys.
Do you want to feel better? I dated someone who was 39.
That is one thing I've found in the dating world that really doesn't mean shit anymore. Is age does not mean a fucking thing anymore.
Yeah.
20-year-old girls will approach a 30-year-old guy and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like, it happens.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
So funny enough, like my wife and I, right? We are both very blind to people flirting. And granted, like when me and my wife got together, I was kind of a scrawnier guy, and then I decided, hey, I'm gonna get into bodybuilding, right? And I got really into it. I mean,
He was jacked.
I was jacked. I
He
was huge.
He was.
And I had girls flirting with me all the time.
Bitches were everywhere on Josh.
No, I had girls flirting with me all the time. Even when my wife and I worked together.
Oh, shit.
And she was literally from me to the next door house, front door to front door. I had girls coming and flirting with me. Now, the reason I can say I had girls coming and flirting with me and not, bat an eye is because I'd have people say, dude, what's going on? Like people who, my peers would sit next to me coming up to me and talking to me like, dude, that girl's coming on to you big time. And I'm so oblivious to that sort of stuff. Like, I just don't recognize it.
Right.
And I think that's because for me, I have fulfillment in what I have.
You want to see the best in people. You don't want
I
to see
do,
the
absolutely.
truth.
I don't. Well, and even
I got a nose for that shit. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I just think that people are being like
Nice.
You were in one of my films, right?
Yeah.
You saw how my sense of humor is.
Absolutely.
So I just think that people are trying to be fun and have fun. So I'm blind to it. I know my wife is like, it's funny. She caught one of her employees checking out her chest, and she chose not to address it. Because she's like,
Well,
why?
now he's gonna check out her chest all the time.
She'll address it when she needs to, but she's
She's more
upper
passive.
management. She's
Yeah.
upper management. So
Right.
it's one of those
It's
things like, I'm not gonna make a big deal out of something because then it's he said, she said.
Right.
Right.
So that's unfortunate. Anyways, I'll get off that. But so let me ask you: when you get a friend request from a younger guy, your age,
Okay.
20s,
Yeah.
what is the first thing that comes to mind? Do you automatically assume negative intentions if you don't know them? Again, you don't know who the person is. Do you assume negative intentions, or what is?
I do, honestly. I think
Okay.
that when people add me, it's for one thing and one thing only, and that's to gain my attention in in a manner that they want.
Gotcha.
Whether it be relationship, hookup, etc., it doesn't matter. I think somebody then has a secret intention behind that friend request, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
I can only imagine. And I think, just with my experience that I've had, maybe it's not the best assumption to make, but it's like 99% of what I see.
But let's break it down real quick. When you get a friend request from somebody and you accept it, and then you get a message from them, of the times that scenario has happened, how many times has it been, hey, you seem like you're into the same things as me, I'd like to get to know you? Or is it, here's a picture of my dick, let's hook up? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
It's a fair mix. I really have to give that to the messages I receive. I'll get the douchebag, but then I will get people that aren't honestly are really fucking nice to me in my messages. Complimenting me and everything. But
What's saying you are so beautiful?
that Indian man with the rose
Oh, man.
picture,
You know
and
what's
he's
funny?
his name is Abdul Muhammad, he's 40 years old.
I think you were reading my mind because there's a picture of when a woman posts a pretty picture, and it's a picture they took of people in India picking up rocks and throwing it. It's a bunch of Indian guys, but instead it's likes and hearts they're throwing.
or when Indian men
great.
comment on false paintings of people, I'm like, oh, you're so beautiful, and it's just this painting of this naked woman.
Yeah.
Just how do you not have any common sense in that regard? It's a fair mix, honestly, in my messages. But it is hard to pick out the people that are genuine and really want to get to know me as a person versus having that intention of hooking up.
Gotcha.
That's how I won.
So let me ask you a question, and this is because I don't get these kind of pictures in my inbox except from Bryn.
They're not always mine either. So
They're not always his. Yeah. Usually it's him holding somebody else's.
not always.
Oh.
Kidding. So let me ask you this: if you had to quantify, and granted, this does not say for all women, but this is just for me to kind of understand.
Sure.
Out of the guys who do not know you that send you friend requests, how many would you say send you inappropriate pictures,
Fuck.
percentage-wise?
I would honestly give it a solid 70%.
No.
Damn,
shit.
7
Really?
out of 10 of you nasty motherfuckers.
It is so bad. It is really so
Oh,
fucking
man.
intense because it'll start off nice and then it'll be fucking boom. I'm like, where did this come from? Where in this conversation did I invite this?
So
That's hilarious.
here's what's funny to me, and my wife and I have talked about this. I don't understand why anybody in their right mind would send a dick pic. And
I've
I'll
never done it in my
explain
entire
why.
life.
I'll explain why I think that. Out of male, female anatomy, if you put them both side by side next to each other, I think that has to probably be the least attractive piece
Easily.
on any person's body.
Easily.
Right.
So I'd assume that they're just trying to show, this is how, endowed I am.
People have this weird ego online where they think that they're invincible and untouchable. I think that social aspect of it, not having to confront somebody in person, being able to have the animosity almost. Well, you're visible, but here's my dick. What are you gonna do about it, bitch?
Yeah.
You know, something like that.
Because they would never come up to you in person and be like,
well, yeah, check my dick out. You know what I'm saying? I think it's that power of the social media that really allows people to be comfortable in doing outrageous shit. Because what are you gonna really do in return besides block somebody? Okay, well, whatever. You know,
Respond
I already.
positively.
well, hold on. Let me ask the both of you this question.
Yeah.
Because we just paralleled those two situations. Is some dude is a flasher in person the same as somebody who sends unsolicited dick pics?
Yes.
Yes.
100%. Thank you. I'm glad
Yeah,
every
because
one of you.
well, and let me
there
explain.
should be like legal recourse.
Well,
I just feel like
let me
there should
explain. Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Because ultimately, if I sent you a friend request tomorrow, right, and then I send you a picture of my male anatomy,
It's like my wiener dog.
right? Like if I send that to you unsolicited, it's no different than me
None.
coming up and shaking my junk in your face. Like,
Trench
both
coat,
should be
yeah.
treated as a form, in my opinion at least, both should be treated as a form of harassment.
Harassment,
right?
sexual harassment,
Absolutely.
and that's what it is. And it's so mind blowing to me that people just do this, or, you know, they're like, here this is, or even asking me the simple fucking question. I have had people be like, "Are you down to fuck?" Like, no, hi, hello, how are you, or anything like that.
She literally showed me these messages. This is real. This happens.
It's so toxic.
Well, you know, I get how that would suck, but from a logical standpoint, if you're just trying to get down to business, I mean,
and touche to the people that want that straightforward lifestyle. If you know what you want in life and you go for it, fuck yeah, I will respect.
yeah, because
the
there's
shit out
girls
of
who
you.
do
Well,
that.
yeah,
right?
but where the line of inappropriate begins is that there are girls that do that, but
Yeah.
every woman and every dude are not that person, and you have to figure out if they're that person before you come out. And
But hold on,
hey.
let's make sure that we're measuring males and females by the same standard.
Right.
If some chick sent you, "Hey, are you down to fuck?" Would you be offended by it?
I would be like, gross, no.
Exactly, right? So we can't act like it's. All I'm saying is we have to treat it with the same standard. So if I sent you DTF, question mark, I think that's what sounds cool. I don't know.
Right, Josh.
I think that's what you would say.
It's cool.
Right. If I were to say that, then it's no different than if you sent that to him without knowing him, right? So we just have to kind of treat it that way. I just want to make sure that, like, across the spectrum, if we're going to say
Right.
that dick pics are bad, that we're being fair across the board.
Boom.
So, Bryn, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is me sending her a dick pic any different than me sending you a picture of a woman's spread eagle that I found online?
Not at all. It was the exact same thing.
So would you consider me sending her a dick pic, her not being your girlfriend, some girl you don't know?
No, it's the exact same thing.
Sexual harassment.
Absolutely.
Would you consider me sending you spread eagle sexual
I
harassment?
think it's only fair to consider them the exact same.
I would. All right. So here's what's funny. I agree with you on principle.
Yeah.
Right.
On principle, yeah. Like,
But I have-
obviously guys are like,
Yeah.
oh, vaginas, yes. Like, we don't care who's by and large, like for the most part, on average.
You know
Not
what's
everyone.
funny about that? So I just got a Christmas card from one of my friends. Right.
Was it a vagina?
Yeah. Well, so my friend, he's in.
You got good friends, man.
He's in a different country, and every year he posts Christmas cards, and it's always of his wife, laid up in front of a tree, spread out. It's just what he does in this community we're in, and I've been giving him shit. Yeah, it's just people are into different things, right?
Right on, man.
He likes to share pictures
Yeah.
of his wife. But what's funny is that, like, I gave him shit because the last 2 years Christmas cards have been exactly the same. And this year he
gotta get
posted
new
up ones.
material, bro.
I said, "Hey man, your wife must be getting old. Yeah, you're trying to hide it." But he posted up new ones. So, point being is, what about in a public form? And that's kind of what I was getting.
So, all right. So if no, because that person, the recipient, is not seeking it. Like, I think that's the determining factor right there. If the recipient is consenting in receiving those things. Like if Cede was out there and she put up a status that was like, send me all the dicks, like, then she couldn't be like, this is bad. But if she's never put it out there that she has consented to this, the same as if I had never sent you a message that said, Josh, send me all the spread eagle chicks you can find. Like, it's the same thing. It all comes down to consent. And I think every action, not just receiving nudity, every action in life comes down to consent.
Go ahead.
Why do you think it's so much worse for someone versus others, besides like being attractive?
Wait, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
So, like, let's say I post a provocative picture of myself, right?
My favorite.
Do you think that I deserve the sexual harassment or the attention that I get in a negative manner because I posted a picture of myself half naked?
Not at all.
I think that, hold on, well, let me answer that. Sexual harassment, no. I don't think that you would deserve, right? But if you post a provocative picture, right?
I should understand.
Suggestive.
I should understand the comments that are going to be placed on.
Or somebody, saying, I love you, darling.
Right, and confessing their love.
Send me Bob's and machine.
I'll ship you a lion. Like, just some dumb shit. Absolutely. And that is the risk that I take when I post pictures on social media, is that I know that there's always going to be a negative connotation by someone who doesn't care.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that people who send you dick pics, and obviously this is just one female's perspective.
Right.
How would you feel if they were charged with sexual harassment?
To be relatively honest with you, I wouldn't like it.
Okay. What about you? How do you feel being a
I
man
would have zero sympathy.
if they were charged with
If they were, I would.
So,
because personally, I hold the belief there's nothing different than a flasher and somebody who sends unsolicited dick.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. And this kind of goes back to when you were talking about if you didn't intentionally ask for something and it was delivered to you, then that's sexual harassment. So we've all seen, at least, back in the 2000s, it was, with antivirus, it's easier now. But even back then, if you didn't run antivirus and you Googled Amazon, right? All of a sudden you have a pop-up of a naked chick saying, explore my holes, or, something ridiculous like that. Click here now.
All two of them.
I don't know. You would get stuff like that. So should that company be held liable for sexual harassment?
I don't think that most of the sourcing of where those things come from are even in our jurisdiction, are even worth the. I mean, then again, that person's actions of getting online can be interpreted into consent. Like, that's a danger of getting online.
So that getting on Facebook, you're potentially going to get dick pics.
That's completely and totally different. You're talking about an invasive virus that is literally programmed just to seed into your computer.
People paying for ads.
Or that. Or an individual person making a conscious decision to send a female a picture of their dick.
Yeah. So here's what I would say, and this is kind of my opinion of it. Because I do agree that it's a form of sexual harassment. It's unsolicited. If I sent you a picture of my male anatomy, you didn't request it, that's sexual harassment in my opinion.
Now, like, I think if we could be adults about the whole situation, and like Josh sends me this picture of this fucking Christmas card with this chick with her tits out, like, I don't think I should be like, fuck this guy, 911. Like, that's ridiculous.
Right.
But like, when it is such a big deal, like for women in general, like I just think that
don't be sexist, Brandon.
I'm not. I just think that men are not men anymore, and I think that there's a lack of honor and there's a lack of chivalry.
So you want to police by adding more force?
I don't think it's policing by adding force. I think it is because, like I said, if I go to a park and meet some lady and I rip my fucking trench coat open and wave my dick in her face, I will get arrested.
Right.
I don't understand how putting a computer screen between us makes that any different.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Here's what I would say, and this is kind of my final thought on it, and then I'll hear you guys out. My final thought on that portion is it is sexual harassment. Hands down, I will not negate that at all. But I think that when we try and use the force of government to intervene in anything, we need to be careful. And that's why I brought up such a ridiculous example of, well, what about me paying for advertising and then you getting a pop-up or something like ridiculous things. it does make it to where we have to draw a fine line. So while I would like to see something done, right, I would love to see it to where maybe social media says, hey, you know what, this is a problem. Since we're scanning these things on Twitter looking for offensive posts,
Right.
why don't we scan for messages sent that show dicks?
Right.
I think that would be acceptable, and then you get a message that says, hey, something inappropriate was sent to you from
Exactly.
Abdul Ahim, and you can choose whether to view it or not.
View
And
it
you
or
can,
not.
right.
Make that,
but
yeah.
to utilize the government, I think that that's a slippery slope until my suggestion, which I think is phenomenal.
If it
personally,
happens persistently.
then I think that you should just be blocking the person. And unfortunately, that's a shitty thing for me to say to you as a woman, right? It's shitty for me to say, hey, you're going to have 100 dick pics thrown at you and you should just block those people because, you know, there's many. But I think that it needs to be something that these concerns are brought forward in a way that's, look, this is a huge problem on your social media platform.
Right.
If you got enough people behind it or a petition, and I think that men who are logical, who do not send dick pics to people, could say, yeah, I don't want my wife or my sister or daughter receiving these. That's something that we would sign on to a petition on. So I'd like to see social media companies do that and just say, hey,
Yeah.
we're not going to monitor your images or anything, but we're going to have stock outlines of penises. Like, and if there's... If in a picture, we're not going to look at your pictures, but if we go through 10,000 pictures in a second that's being sent, and one has an outline that we've identified,
Right.
whether it be stubby, chubby, or long,
I love this idea
Yeah.
because if I share a picture of white people dancing with the caption "white people," am I right? And I get banned for 30 days for hate speech.
Yeah.
I think it's perfectly acceptable to ask these companies to say, hey, can you figure out a fucking way to make dick pics or unsolicited nudity like have to be approved? Like, can you send these people messages that say, hey, this picture contains nudity or blah 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 blah, would you like to accept? Because then that element of consent is there.
or even something like a repercussion, but doesn't involve government interaction. Like, okay, so my idea of, you know,
So do you think it's
outlines of
okay for the
penises-
government to interact in this dude that's at a park who waves his dick in front of a lady?
Well, hold on. Let me address what I was going to say, and then you can ask that
Okay,
question because
all
it's a valid question.
It is.
So I think that in a platform such as Facebook, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that it should be where if you send me a dick pic unsolicited,
Put up
you can
there.
until they figure out how to do that, right? To see an outline and chubby, stubby, long, you know, whatever.
Right.
It could be where, like, if I sent her a dick pic, she could click report in the messages, and then it would be reviewed. And if it was found that I sent her a dick pic and she didn't request it, I think a lifetime ban from that, where your IP is banned,
I like that idea.
your name is banned, different things like that.
Your whole
I think
account,
that's acceptable.
Yeah.
But I think that it would have to be where, because there's a lot of chicks, as we've said, there's a lot of women who like getting that shit. So it would have to be where first it was made abundantly clear to every male or every female who
Yeah.
may be.
We have to treat this both ways.
Yeah. Everybody, it's made clear, like, hey, in 90 days, we're going to make it to where you can report pictures that are sent to you in message. If it is clear that it's an unsolicited dick pic or whatever, if the person reports you, your IP will be banned.
Well,
From our platform.
I think that I personally think, because my hard line, it rests on consent. That's my biggest thing.
Right.
Like I said, this is with any interaction in life in general. Like,
Yeah.
that's what makes, you know, working for someone not slavery is consent. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to just be in the sexual aspect.
Well, I didn't consent to being arrested last night.
But like that's what makes things an agreeable interaction is consent.
Exactly.
You can't. I think the best way to face that issue is, because how many of us have gotten on Facebook and scrolled through our news feed and seen a picture that's blurred out, that's darked out, that says this you know, picture may or include offensive imaging or whatever the fuck
Right.
it says, and you have to click view.
Yeah.
That is the consent to see that. That is me wondering what's behind that blurred image.
Right.
If somebody, man or woman, is in their messages and they get sent an image, and it says, this image has been blocked because it may may include nudity or obscene images. Do you wish to see it? And you click yes. You're consenting to potentially getting a dick pic.
So I've created a home run idea. That's what we're getting here. Now, all right. So I want to move on.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay?
because this is about the dating world today.
Right.
Kind of got hung up on.
I actually want to get into a specific, hearing kind of what it sounds like as far as dating. Okay. I want both of your perspectives.
Yeah.
Starting with Sevi. CV.
Like CB, but not for the Navy.
CV. Excuse
We
me.
went over this.
All right. Starting with you. Well, let me ask you a question.
All right.
And I'm not gonna put it with any names, but raise your hand if you've been cheated on ever. Okay. So knowing kind of how the dating world is nowadays and how people are in general. And we'll start with you. Would you get married ever? And if so, what makes you think that, well, you've probably seen people who are married cheat as well, right?
Yeah.
What makes people want to take that leap of faith now? Of course I'm married, so I already have formed my opinion and gotten to where I'm at.
Which leap of faith? Getting married or cheating?
Getting married.
Okay.
Would you,
I was confused there for a second.
and I'm sorry to ask this question because you guys are pretty new to dating. I don't mean together, but I just mean in general, like marriage, because that's obviously something that's important as far as the family dynamic goes.
Absolutely. I mean, I've built my ideals on when I would and would not get married. I eventually do want to be married and have kids. That's kind of my ideal dynamic. I think it's a lot harder now, day and age, to find somebody even to particularly date, but the key aspects would be loyalty, honesty, checking in when I ask them to check in, which people apparently find controlling in this day and age now. Being respectful of not talking to 7 different girls at one time, establishing boundaries. These are all things that would eventually lead me to wanting to be with a partner, but also moving on emotionally, financially, always discussing if we're ever in an argument to not go to bed angry, to make sure that if there's communication on that, he would always have access to my phone out of a respect thing. I'd be like, here's my passcode, go crazy. And I'd expect the same in return. I don't find these things controlling, but a lot of people do nowadays.
So let me ask you a question, right? My wife knows my passcode, right? And just for full transparency, the deal that me and my wife had when we first got married was if either of us are going to cheat, we are going to show enough respect for each other to make one single phone call and say, having sex this one time is worth throwing away our marriage. Obviously, it wouldn't be said like that, but that's essentially the message you're
It puts
sending.
it in a bigger
Absolutely.
perspective that like you're gonna have to call that person that you call your husband or your wife and say, "Hey, I'm throwing this away for some dick."
It's
Like,
true. I would call my wife if I was going to cheat on her tonight.
Yeah.
I would call my wife, even though obviously that's not the easy thing.
Let's say, Josh, are
Hypothetically,
you hitting on me right now?
I mean, you sent me dick pics. No, so like it's just one of those things that like we have that respect and understanding. Now, granted, our values don't encompass that sort of behavior.
Right.
And I think that a lot of what's built mine and my wife's relationship is trust.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like my wife knows my password. I don't have a password on my phone. My wife has access to anything she needs. She knows my password because I use the same passwords for everything.
Everything.
And then when I update them, they all get updated. So they're always kind of in flow, and they match our shared bank account. So it's one of those things that
that really embodies like two people becoming one. Like when you take
yeah.
your shared bank account and you turn that into every password to your personal shit so that your partner has access to that shit. That's a beautiful thing. I just want to
it's
say
close. It's close. There's different things, but my wife
it's
knows.
not that beautiful.
My wife knows
Okay.
every password that I would use. But it's one of those things that she's never checked my passwords. She's never checked on things and questioned me. And my ex-wife, if I went to a gas station and I was gone for 10 minutes, she'd be like, "What? Who the fuck were you talking to?"
You got 10-minute BJ, didn't you?
Apparently, but
While
yeah,
pumping gas.
gone in 60 seconds. That's what we'll call that film. No, but it's it's one of those things that she had such a distrust for me, and it was because she was a lying, cheating whore.
And 9 times out of 10, the non-trusting person that accuses you of things is actually the person doing that shit.
Yeah,
I learned that.
and they're essentially they feel guilty and they feel like, oh, if I'm doing this, they're doing it to me.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that like she had such distrust for me that was for no reason that when my wife and I were together and we started dating, we dated for 3 years before we got married. It was one where she never questioned things. She'd just be like, "Go do you." Like I would go to bars, and I hate bars. I hate them. I hate going out to bars. I was invited to a bar 3 weeks ago, and I didn't go because I just didn't want to go. But it's one of those things that I can do whatever I want. I've gone to Las Vegas without my wife 2 times, but she knows my character. She knows that
there's trust and security.
Exactly. Yeah. And by her extending that respect to me, it makes me more respectful towards her in my actions.
So your first marriage, you were cheated on.
Oh yeah, dude. My ex-wife, I'm not going to call her names, but she...
okay. So, but yes.
She knew the rodeo.
The answer was yes. That's what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. Like, you were cheated on your friend. I was cheated on in my marriage.
Right.
So, I think that's a great topic to segue into, is that when you're married, are cheaters that are married. Like, when adultery and infidelity comes into a marriage, how do you deal with that?
Okay, so I actually have the perfect answer for this, and then I'd love to hear both of yours.
Go for it.
Okay.
I gotta hear this.
If my wife were to cheat on me tonight, I don't care if it's 1 dude or 60 dudes. If my wife were to cheat on me tonight, you have 2 options at that point.
60 dudes, that's...
Okay. You have to go to the extreme.
I'd be impressed. Yeah.
So...
I mean, it's not a world record, but it's still impressive. You know?
Yeah. No, it's one of those things that I feel you have 2 options at that point. You either forgive and leave, or you forgive and work it out.
Right.
And the minute you choose forgive and leave, you leave. You forgive that person. That's just kind of how I am. It's like, I'm not going to hold this against you. I think that that's not the part of you that I don't like. I forgive you for that, but peace. If you stay with the person, and this is one thing that drives me nuts. I see it a lot of times where people stay with a cheater, right, and then 3 years later they're like, "You're a piece of shit. You've had sex with somebody else." Blah blah blah. If my wife cheated on me, and I chose to stay with her and work out our marriage,
you'd have to.
I would never bring it up again.
Right.
And if I could not live with not bringing it up, I would choose to leave her. And it's one of those things that I think that people aren't genuine a lot of times when they say, "I respect this person enough that I'm going to say, okay, I forgive you." You're doing a temporary thing, right? Like, you're still holding bitterness and everything. And I think part of that for me is, I won't get into that, but just my personal beliefs and how I view things. If you choose to forgive somebody, no matter what it is, you have to forgive them. And that extends to a lot of aspects of my life. I try and make it to where I don't actually set myself up for failure. So if somebody asks me to borrow $1,000, I'm going to give you $1,000, but mentally I'm going to say, that wasn't a loan. That way, if you never pay me back, I never am upset and hating.
You go into it with no expectation.
But I know you'll never ask me for money again. So, $1,000 is pretty cheap to write somebody off. So, just kind of, that's my mentality with things, that you don't hold anger and everything like that. You don't let that possess what little, we have a heart that's, small, and the body that's small, comparatively to the world.
Yeah.
Why would you let that fill up with hate, anger, and, those different things when you could just choose to?
So that's actually something that I've experienced firsthand. Like when I first found out my ex-wife was cheating, like, I was devastated. Like, you knew me when all this was happening, so you can confirm. Like, I was devastated, and I chose to try and work things out. And the thing is like, I went through the marriage counseling. I went through just hours of conversation with her. Like in one sitting, we'd sit and talk about things for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Like, and a lot of good came from that. But when the moment came that we were like, all right, well, we're separating, we're filing for divorce, like that's what it was. And that's that. There was a brief moment just before she left where there was a slight sign of remorse that, we were both upset that we didn't work out and that the plans that we had and the dreams that we had didn't happen. But we both knew at that point in time, like this was over.
Yeah.
That process took a year.
You know what's funny about that? And then I want to get to you. What's funny about that is I remember that clearly. I went home to my wife and I told my wife, we talk about everything. I don't hide anything from her.
Right.
So I told her, I said, Bryn's an idiot. Like, he's an idiot. He's saying he's going to give it a year. Like, while on paper that sounds good, he's probably going to be, a wuss about it. And he's going to just keep letting her, continue these behaviors that are negatively impacting their marriage. And he's just going to keep making excuses. I'm giving you a little bit longer. And I was actually shocked. Truly, like I've never seen somebody say, I'm going to give it 1 year. And then a year later, you're like, it's not working out. I gave it my all. And I had so much respect for you saying, like, dang, man, like, he really did, like, stick to his word. Like, I'm giving this 1 year. I'm going to try and work things out because it's the right thing to do.
I was married, and that's when I said those vows, like, I really meant them. Like, that was a thing, like, for better or for worse, like, and that's the worst thing that I could have ever imagined happen is finding out that my wife was, intimate with somebody else. Like, I was like, holy shit, like.
I didn't want to bring it up earlier, but I was like, man, this is such a good example. But the thing with your case, since you brought it up, was while she may not have cheated again during that year,
right,
behaviors were still in place,
right,
that contributed to the decimation of your marriage.
Well, I can't agree with that, and I can't agree with that with one thing because I don't believe that cheating is just fucking someone else.
Yes, I agree.
If you have an intimate relationship where you're telling someone you're in love with them and you're telling other people that you're not in love with your spouse, like you're cheating.
So I was trying to be respectful because I know your ex-wife.
Those things did happen throughout that year, and those were the things that taught me that this wasn't actually the one, no matter how much I wanted it to be.
So I was trying to be respectful because I know your ex and. She's a great person.
Well, the thing is that, and the reason why I'm so open about she's not a bad person at all. She's made some bad choices, but it is what it is.
Right.
The reason that I'm so open about the situation is like, me and my ex-wife, we still communicate. You know what I mean? Like we still say, hey, how are you doing? We still check up on each other because, like, we both know that the romance is not there at all. But we spent. Like I'm 30 years old and I spent 7 years with this woman. I almost spent a third of my life with her.
Right.
So there's still a level of respect and friendship there. And neither one of us want each other to do bad. Like, because her and I didn't work out doesn't mean that she's a shitty person or that I'm a shitty person. It means that, we spent our time together and we both learned lessons from each other. And further down the road, we're going to be better people for what we learned.
So being railroaded, and that's what I'm going to call your marriage. It was short-lived, and it was railroaded.
Oh yeah.
Okay. We know that she still believes in the family dynamic and having kids in a traditional marriage. Having been railroaded, do you?
Absolutely. Because that thing didn't work out, and because it didn't work out with that person, like my ultimate goal in life, and whether it be with CV or with someone else or however it may happen, like my ultimate goal is to still be a great father and to still have a family. That has always been my biggest goal, and I think that's why things hurt as much as they did in my marriage, is that those were the things that we were just getting to when it came out that there was an affair present. Like we were talking about having kids, we were talking about buying our house. Those balls were starting to roll, and as soon as that dream started to look like it was going to be a reality, it was yanked out from under me. And that's why, like I said, you were there for it. You understand what I went through personally, like with depression and everything else. Like that's why those things hit so hard, is because that's always been a goal of mine.
You handled it. Like, I got to say this. I got to give you credit. You handled it like a champ.
I handled it extremely privately.
Yes, that's what I mean. Outside perspective, you handled it like a champ. I looked at you and I was like, holy smokes, man! Like, this guy is so put together. When I got a divorce, it was a mess. I was a mess emotionally and everything.
Right.
So, all right, wrapping that up, we have your kind of perspective on what you think as far as marriage goes. We have yours. We have mine. I obviously believe in it, and I'm living what I believe. Is there anything else you guys want to add?
Siri,
I'm here.
Siri wants to know.
Siri, what do you think of marriage?
I don't have an answer for that.
Ah.
Is there something else I can help with?
Siri, can you send me nudes?
I don't have an answer for that. Is there something else I can help with?
Useless.
No, you're useless.
That's not nice.
All right. Well, on that note, do you have anything else you want to add, CV?
Pressure's on, huh?
Oh yeah, it is.
Crazy. I mean, as somebody who's never been married or never been in that position but has been cheated on, and thought that I was going to marry this person, I can definitely say, you know, where I wanted nothing but to marry this person and then have been turned around and cheated on, it devastated me for a good chunk of time. Really having to rebuild my self-esteem at such a young fucking age on top of that, just to completely have it annihilated for, 2.5 years and being able to grow, but still believe in the idea that somebody's gonna want to be with me. That was hard for a long time. Good job.
It was that hurt. So like, did that change what you wanted out of life?
It did for a long time because I lost prospect of who I really was because of how much the pain and the hurt and the anger blinded me. I was on a path of I would use people and get what I wanted and then leave because that's what everybody did to me. So I lost prospect of who I really was as a person for a long time because I just wanted to use everybody around me because that's what people were doing to me.
When you get to that point in the relationship or you get to marriage and you cheat, it damages that other person and it turns that other person into somebody who then in turn either wants nothing to do with anybody else or they go and do the same thing where they use other people, and it's just a perpetual cycle, and it snowballs until there's single people out there that could be absolutely perfect for each other, but they're both so damaged that they don't believe in that dream. They don't believe in that aspect or that dynamic of building a life together, having kids, starting a family, growing old, having grandkids, watching their kids graduate high school, all the classic American dream things that one wants to experience. It makes people not want that anymore when they experience what the dating world is today. Mm. Does that make sense? Yeah. Is that a good way to tie everything back into where we started?
I think in closing, ultimately, while the environment has changed as far as dating, relationships, marriage goes, it's one of those things where you will not know unless you take a chance, and you have to weigh everything out and determine risk versus reward. And when you find somebody, you'll know if they're worth the risk. And if you find that, take the risk. On that note, I'm Jash. This is Brain.
CV.
CV. Have a wonderful evening.